If you're struggling with triple ombre and you really want to try it, I came up with an easy way to help you. What's up, nail crew? It's Nicole, your fellow nail obsessed DIYer. Today we are doing a triple ombre, and then I'm going to teach you also how to apply a flake dip powder to make it look super, super flaky. So first we're going to start off with the triple ombre, and it starts off like a traditional just two color ombre. The colors that I'm using, the pink is called Shore Jan. The orange is called We're Friends Till the End. And then the darker orange I'm going to be using that's not in the picture right now is called Downwind. They're all from OG Dip Powder. So I start off by doing the tap method. And on the very first layer, what you want to do is you want to tap the lightest color about 3/4 the way up your nail. So you want it to be a decent way up your nail, and then you tap the darker color at the tip. So to do this kind of triple ombre, you definitely have to go lightest to darkest, and the colors need to be decently different enough, like in pigment wise, so that they're able to show up. I did a triple ombre mani probably last year. The colors were all light colors, so this method wouldn't work if you were like using all light colors or using all dark colors together. It works a lot nicer if you have a light color and then maybe a medium color and then a dark color. So I'm doing the ombre just on my ring finger and my middle finger, and I did the same thing with my ring finger. I did the pink about like halfway to 3/4 the way up my nail, and then I tapped the orange on. When you tap your second color, you want it to go over top of the first color. So I not only tapped it to where it met the line of the pink, you tap it past that, because you'll see in the next layer like how that starts to really ombre it. So if I had just wanted to do the orange and pink together, just these two colors, then what I would have done is only kept the orange at the very edge of the nail on the second layer, but we're not going to do that. So for the second layer, what I did was I tapped the orange down a little bit further. So I tapped the orange over halfway, and this way it got more into the pink so that then we can do the triple ombre part. And it worked out really well. Like, I just did the pink at the very bottom. One thing I might have changed about this is I might have used a pink that was a little bit darker instead of this one is a little bit sheer. It looked gorgeous in the end, but I had to do more work to get the pink to show up. And after every dip, since these are at your cuticles, you want to make sure that you trace around the edges just so that you don't get any dip or anything stuck on your skin, so that it could lift earlier or something like that. So once I did that second layer, I brushed off all the excess and I scrubbed the pink in a little bit at the very bottom, right around my cuticle. I wanted to try to get the pink to pop a little bit more, but since the orange was so pigmented, the pink only would pop so much, but actually it looked really beautiful once I started getting into the third color. So the third color is a super bright neon orange. And what I did was I took a smaller eyeshadow brush. So rather than the fluffier, bigger ones, I took a thinner one and really scrubbed the darkest of the oranges into the edge. Now that worked really well. I did something goofy. I grabbed the middle brush to add a little bit more of the orange in, thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. And instead of blending it into the darker orange and the medium orange, I blended it in a little too much, the pink. So I had to like try to scrub some more pink back in. I always do a combination of tap and scrub when I'm doing ombres. I know some people like do one or the other, but for me, doing that combination has given me the best ombre. When I just do either tap or just scrub, my ombre doesn't seem to blend together as nicely. So doing this combination of the tap and the scrub just works out really well. So if you're struggling with ombres, I would highly recommend to try this combination of tapping and then scrubbing in. I repeated the second layer on my ring finger, doing the same, steps where I made the orange go past halfway, and then I did the pink at the bottom. I did the tapping to start, or I even brushed it off, before I brushed any of the excess powder off. I went in with the darkest orange and scrubbed it right into the tip. And the oranges blended so beautifully. It like felt like, had I done a yellow, it could have looked like, I don't know, like a sunset or something like that. I'm definitely definitely going to use this technique again when I do triple ombres to see like what other colors I can make it work with. When you use your darkest color as your last color, you can really blend it in really well, like scrub that tip of your nail so that it pops as much as you want. And I felt like I brushed off the excess and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, it's not popping as much as I want. So I just keep scrubbing the color in. And that's what's so nice about doing this kind of triple ombre, that you don't have to perfectly place all three of the colors. So the last time I did the triple ombre, I actually ombre'd the three colors in the places I wanted them to be, and then scrubbed on top of that. This way, you're only like you're technically only tapping two colors, and then you can scrub any of the colors in where you need, and you only have to scrub the darkest color in at the edge. So I know that was like a lot of information on how to do the ombre, but I'm telling you, this way was so much easier. Once you're done with the ombre, you 100% want to use a super crystal clear dip powder to as your last layer and then activate it. You don't want to activate right over your ombre, because what I've found happens is if you're somebody who likes to buff and file, typically the ombre gets messed up. So you kind of buff through some of your ombre, and after you did all that work on your beautiful ombre, like you definitely do not want to mess it up. I always make sure I activate, especially if I'm going to be doing any glitter, flakes, or foils on my other nails, so that the ombre or the solid or shimmer that I'm using doesn't get contaminated. Now we're getting into doing a flake dip powder. And anytime I'm using a glitter, flake, or foil, I like to take a piece of tape and put it on typically my middle finger on my opposite hand to be able to press down, in this case, the flakes, so that right off the bat, they're going to start sitting flat. And flakes actually are really easy to get to sit flat. I mean, you barely need to press them down and they just kind of like melt right into each other. So on the first layer of doing a flake dip, you want to shake the flakes up. So you kind of like shake the little container that you're using. I'm using a dip cup from SJ3 Designs, and I shake it up so that the flakes come up to the top. You want to get as much as you can on both dips. On the first dip, I try to get a decent amount, but it's the second dip where I really want the flakes to come up, and I'll show you a trick that I do. And anytime I do the flakes, I still brush off any of the excess powder. Then what I do is I kind of maneuver the dip cup. So if you're not using a dip cup, this is going to be a little bit harder to do. But what I do is I take the dip cup and kind of squeeze the edges in all around so that the majority of the flakes end up like right along the center. Then I can just lay my nail directly where all those flakes are, right along the center of the dip cup, and I get this massively flaky layer of dip. I know some people like struggle with flake mayonnaise or foils. This is my technique to get as many of the flakes or foils as I possibly can on my nail. I don't like when my flakes or foils are sparse. I like to have a lot of my nails, not as much with foils, but with flakes, I want it to be like insanely flaky on the top of my nails. I want it to be like so dimensional. So this dip is super multidimensional. It has all these different gorgeous shifts to it, and I wanted that to show because it's in a black base. So the more that I squeeze the dip cup together and kind of shake all those flakes to the middle and then lay my nail, like you can literally see in the video, there is like a strip of flakes, and that's where I lay my nail. So I get these super flaky looking nails. It's nothing crazy that I do. It is just a trick that I figured out that helps me to get the maximum multi-dimensional flakiness to show, and that is like pretty much always my goal because I like a lot of flakes to show up on my nails. So once I'm done with the second layer on all of my flake nails, I of course go in with the clear dip powder. Just like on the ombre, it's super important that you do clear dip powder as your last layer because number one, you don't want any of the flakes to get like weird and when you buff them. And number two, you just work so hard to get them to look good. Like, of course, make sure you do a clear dip powder layer as your last one, and then you brush off the excess and activate. Once your activator has hardened your nails, then you can get into the buffing, shaping, and filing. And if you applied your dip liquids thinly, you should not have to do a lot when it comes to buffing, filing, and shaping. So I'm just putting in a little bit of what I do. I like to use this flexible file and really like get all over my nail just to get it nice and smooth. And then I go in with the hand file and fix any of my shaping that got kind of wonky like after I dipped. Whenever you dip, it adds a little bit of bulk. So I like to really make sure that my shape looks nice again. And then I go around all of my cuticles with my new favorite cuticle bits just to make sure they are nice and crisp and really even. That is basically all I do. It does take me a little while, but so worth it to have your nice smooth dip nails. And then I spray them with isopropyl alcohol. So now we're going to jump into the stamping. And I wanted to do just a little bit of some kind of like pumpkin design on one of the ombre nails. I decided to go with like a white and black since, that would kind of go with like the darker nails. And I did a layered stamp. It went on really beautifully. This plate is from Uber Chic. It's called What a Wonderful Fall. I absolutely love it. I think this is like the third time I've used it. But when I did the black over top, I just felt like with the white and black, something just was missing. So since I didn't put any top coat on, all I had to do was take isopropyl alcohol on a wipe and wipe it off really well. And then I could just redo my stamping. I picked a different pumpkin and I did all black because I felt like that would look really cool over the ombre. And then I had the little pumpkin on there and I'm like, something else is missing. It needs like some leaves. So I just pulled part of another image. And what you see me doing with the tape is I keep taking part of the tape and pulling off parts of the stamped image that lift up with the part of the image that I want. So like way too much comes on the jelly stamper. And I just take some masking tape, pull off the pieces that I don't want on there and just press the stamped image down that I want. And if you work quickly, you don't have to worry about it drying. That is one thing like with stamping is you have to work decently fast so that your stamped image doesn't dry if you're stamping right on your nails. Now I'm going to show you my trick to being able to use dip liquids over top of a stamped image. So I take Maniology's smudge-free top coat and put it over my entire nail, including capping my edges. A little bit ran into my cuticle wall, so I just took an orange wood stick and wiped off any of the excess. Once it is totally dry, and that takes about 5 to 10 minutes, preferably wait 10 minutes till it is completely dry, then you can wipe the other nails off. Don't wipe your stamped nail off with some isopropyl alcohol. Then you go in and do your top coating exactly how you would with normal dip liquids. So I'm using OG dip powder dip liquids. You do heavy activator on 5 nails. When you get to your pinky, you count to 10 and then go back to your thumb for the first layer of top coat in like 2 to 3 quick, thin, even strokes. You want to make sure that you float your dip top coat in both layers. This will really help your brush from getting contaminated and hardening. And I do that for every brand I use. And then for OG, as soon as you're done with the first layer of top coat on your pinky, you can go back to your thumb and do the second layer of top coat. And you can take your time more. Make sure you cap your edges, especially if you like to wear your mani long. Now, if you're ready to learn more about stamping, then make sure you check out the next video and I will teach you some easy stamping tips and tricks. Thanks for joining me today, Nail Crew.